Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 19th episode here at Oakland Tobacconist. And I want to thank you all for joining us on a very special episode, a recurring guest we've had on our show before. And so we're really excited, not only for our guest, but also for the killer sampler pack we are running. We have AJ Fernandez available in a 6-pack. We've right now sort of titled it the Portfolio pack. I realize that AJ has made many more, in fact, under various different names as well as his own. He has a huge portfolio, but these are a very good example of what AJ's talents has to offer in the cigar world. So if you're watching tonight, feel free to drop in the comments any questions for myself or Tim Wong, our guest this evening. Let us know what you're smoking. Let us know what you're drinking, if the pairing is working. Tonight, I am actually going to be lighting up the Bellas Artes Maduro. This is a very special Maduro. It's very unique. I would put its strength probably in the medium plus range. But the reason it's so unique, it uses a Brazilian Mata-Fina wrapper. Typically, as many have seen on the show, when we light up a Maduro, normally it's a San Andreas, perhaps a broadleaf. So Brazilian Mata-Fina is used quite often as a Maduro leaf, but not as common sometimes inside our humidor. We have Cholico joining on. Hello, good afternoon. Glad you are joining. Let us know what you are smoking. Also, hopefully we'll see you this weekend on Sunday if you get a chance to come up, 4 o'clock. I'm letting you know, don't miss it. We also choose the right, smoking a Dias de Gloria. Oh, that's Matt. Dias de Gloria and 1775 bourbon, which is from a local distillery. In fact, I am pairing the same thing. It's 1775 whiskey from J. Riley in Redlands. So they're like 22 minutes down the hill. Really good. So we're going to see how it pairs with this this Bellas Artes. We have Mike on smoking the same thing. Well, awesome, Mike. Glad to see you are joining us tonight. Glad to see you're having a good cigar. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, there you go. Correct name. And also here with us in the shop tonight, Matt is joining us, Rob and Claudia, and Derek and Christy. And we got Andy, who is so graciously offered to share the whiskey. So we're going to see how this pairs. As I say, this is a very special show tonight. And I'm actually going to show you our sampler pack we have available. One of the best discounted samplers we have offered the entire year. You have 6 cigars, one phenomenal price. You have his sort of trifecta of New World, his Cameroon, Connecticut, and Maduro, all in the Toro size, save the Cameroon, which is Gordo. Then we have the Dias de Gloria, which, as I understand, I'm sure Tim will elaborate more, but Dias de Gloria was the most recent release that has come under the AJ name. And then the one I am lighting up, Bellas Artes Maduro, and then the Bellas Artes Natural, which is also a phenomenal cigar. I've heard oftentimes people say that AJ has the golden touch when it comes to tobacco, and I can definitely see why that name has been thrown around. If chances are in the cigar world, in one shape or another, you have smoked something he's done, maybe even under the name of H. Upman or Monte Cristo. He has an entire line of different cigars that he blends, but we are offering from the AJ Fernandez brand, and he has phenomenal cigars to offer. So very limited amount. Click on the link in this video. It'll take you to our website. That is where you can get the sampler pack. Don't miss out on it. We also have Eric saying, you always have the best samplers. I need to restock. Well, tonight's the perfect opportunity to restock. It's hard to find a better price than that. So you can go to our website. Glad to see that you're still smoking. We have Chip on as well, smoking a Bellas Artes Maduro. That's the cigar of the evening. So without further ado, we are going to have Tim join us. We're going to have him join us on the show. Once again, if you have any questions for Tim or myself, drop them down in the comments. I will try to pull them as we continue on. Questions about AJ's brand, and so on and so forth. So with that said, please welcome me in welcoming Tim Wong to the show. Hey, Tim, how's it going?
Gentlemen and ladies, how are you guys doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you so much for joining us on our show this evening.
Yeah. I miss hanging out on that patio. One of these days, I'm going to have to get back out there and do one of the cutlights that we're so familiar with. You guys are an excellent audience, and I love being out there with you guys. So I'm glad I can do this tonight, but I do miss being out there with you guys.
Definitely. Next time you have you on the show, we'll have to do it live, side by side, instead of just across Zoom or across YouTube.
everything should be open by now, or close to it. So I'm ready.
Yeah. Now, where exactly are you located? You're up north somewhat?
No, so actually, I actually live in Orange County, so not too far. I've been traveling a bit. I'm originally from San Francisco. I have family up there, but I make my home in Orange County.
Okay, okay. And I know we've kind of touched on this before for some of the people that have watched our show before, but if you don't mind, just a quick snapshot of kind of what brought you to the cigar industry and what that kind of looked like.
Yeah. I tell the same story, but it's absolutely true. I mean, I don't have a long history in the tobacco business. I wish I had uncles and fathers and grandfathers, but I got lucky. I've been smoking cigars nearly 30 years, which every time I tell the story, that number goes up, which is a little scary. But back in the day when I first started smoking, we didn't have social media. What we had was bulletin boards, and so we were posting, talking to other cigar smokers that way.
Okay.
And actually what you guys do, on the patio when you have those kind of nights, we used to call herfs. That's how I met people. And after talking to a few people, I met some of the company representatives. The guy that I work with tonight who couldn't be on the show, who we tried to get, was Frank Santos. Santos is our AJ's marketing director. He's also our director of sales. In the interim, since we don't have a national sales manager, but he's our boy. He was the guy that got me into the cigar business many years ago. He's a blood member of the Tarano family. I started, if you guys are familiar with Carlos Tarano Cigars, as an entity back in 2004. So Frankie and I've been working forever. It was just basically in my communications with him, he was like, you should meet the family. I really love the cigars. I was a really big fan of Tarano Cigars. And when I got the chance to talk to Charlie and to Carlos, they kind of have the conversations like, you really know a lot about cigars. We want to hire you. So they offered me a job as a sales rep 17 years ago, and I haven't looked back. I mean, I was a dot-com. Yeah. I was a dot-com kid. I was doing marketing and communications and that kind of stuff. But this was a passion. I was like, you know what? I would love to try this. And it's funny. They were very generous to hire me because I had no sales experience. All I knew was I was a cigar dork, and that could turn into a career. Tim Wong, professional cigar dork. That's basically who I am and what I do. So.
Yeah. Okay, so and kind of starting with the Tarano family, was he working with AJ as well at the time, or did that come later?
What's funny is AJ has become this monster, and nobody realizes he's done it in a very short period of time. When I first started, if AJ was doing something, nobody knew who he was. He really didn't come into prominence until about 13, 14 years ago. And he started, I remember running into him, when he was just getting started in 2008. And I remember I had this card that I got from him, one of his original business cards. And when I joined the company, I showed it to him. He said, "Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "From you 10 years ago." So, he did, So I've known him for a long time, but, back when I started, he really hadn't gotten started yet. And, when he first started building the factories and things, he worked for, kind of as a private label company, as a contract factory. And, his biggest customer is still Cigars International to this day. But that was the company he started with. All this stuff with his own factories, his own brands, really, again, didn't really come into play until about 12 or 15 years ago. But since then, I mean, his trajectory has been fantastic. He is absolutely the sort of private label factory of choice. Everybody wants to have a cigar made by AJ Fernandez for them. To the point where sometimes we can't do small batches anymore because we're a big factory, and so when we do something for somebody else, it's on a larger scale. But it's a dedication. It's an honor to watch this develop, because he's the start from ground zero. And with determination and with his knowledge of tobacco, with a little help from his family and his friends, and just he made some incredible cigars that have really resonated with the industry.
Right.
That's kind of driven him to become this he's a top 5 player now. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I actually am remiss. I forgot to ask what you lit up tonight, and are you pairing anything with your cigar?
So I heard actually both cigars that I have picked up. The Dias de Gloria is probably my favorite currently of what they make, and then to finish the night, I have the Pesachos Maduro like you do. So
there you go.
Depending on how long we're here, I've got 2 sticks, and as long as I've got something to smoke. You got me in the chair. So
Nice.
And I'm not a big alcohol guy, so tonight I'm just having water. I mean, I don't really drink that much. I taste a little bit for whiskeys and rums is what I know because I want to get the pairing. I know that bourbons have become a big thing of recent, and I'm just trying to get into them so I can learn. Mainly, it's just so I can be conversational. But I mean, I'm not a
Okay.
big alcohol consumer. Normally, if I had to pair something, I love coffee. I love, give me anything with soda. So like, good root beer, something that has a little sugar to it. But my favorite spirit would be rum. If I was,
Okay.
cutting loose or it was a special occasion, I definitely pair my cigars with rum.
Okay. Yeah. And actually, honestly, it seems like the more people we talk to within the industry is kind of moving into that like rum side of things. A lot. I've heard that a
I
lot
would
more
call it the
often.
other way. Rum is the traditional drink. If you go to the Caribbean, Central South America, that really is the spirit of choice. So they're coming into whiskeys and bourbons, but when you go down there, so for instance, Dominican Republic, everyone's got sort of a national rum brand. The Dominicans got Brugal, Nicaragua's got Flor de Caña, Cuba's got Havana Club. So that really is sort of the pairing because that's what they're familiar with, and that's the most popular spirit in those areas.
Okay.
And that's really because that's what they distill there, and they don't have a lot of importing of rums of scotches and things. And again, the countries are a little bit poor, so they're not exactly able to buy $40-$50. Rum is actually relatively inexpensive in those countries. You can buy a bottle of Flor de Caña or a bottle of Havana Club in that $7-8 range versus here
Wow.
it's something
Yeah.
we think $30 bottle is reasonable. There,
Right.
it's $7, sometimes $3-4 bottles. So it's a
Wow.
different economy, different scale, and that's the spirit of choice because of the economies.
Okay. So as we were kind of not to backtrack it a little bit, but as you were kind of saying, like AJ started with like doing some private label stuff. What was his first release under his own name?
Okay, yeah. So about I want to say this is 2009, 2010. I was actually still working for Rocky Patel when we first came. It was the New Orleans trade show when Katrina hit New Orleans, and that's when he hit the show floor presenting San Lotano, Oval specifically. San Lotano and the San Lotano Oval were the first two brands he had that hit the marketplace under his own name.
And that oval, was that like a soft box press? Like
Sure, like a tongue press is the best way to describe it. I say it tongue in cheek, but what it was sort of a soft. And what we've learned is AJ has become a master of the box press. I mean, you look at how many brands that we have that have the box press. He loves it. He thinks he does it better than anybody, and it shows in the product we have. But that was an experimental shape that really kind of took off because it was so different. It wasn't different in a bad way. It was different in a good way. It was if you got the chance to try it, it did not feel like an uncomfortable cigar to smoke, and it was definitely a new unique shape. So it did really well for him when it first came out.
Okay. So we released the San Lotano, and were those blends the Connecticut and the
first
bowl?
two blends were the first two blends were the Habano and the Middle, right? And then after that came the Connecticut, and then you got the Bull further down the line. After the San Lotano, you ended up with Piñolero and Mayembe. Those were the subsequent brands that they're not available now, but they may come back later. Piñolero we've talked about, and we've used them for event only. But those were the first brands, and then after that came New World. That's really the brand that put AJ's brands on the map. Is New World.
Well, now it almost seems, and I kind of, when I talk about like strength on cigars, I kind of have a lot in mind of our customers in the sense of if someone walks through the humidor, maybe is not smoking all the time, what is strength perception going to be? So offhand, I would say when I first started smoking AJ, it was more on the fuller side or the medium plus side. Is that how his original blends came out in the beginning, or was that something that evolved over time?
So let me put it this way to answer your question. I believe, just on what I've smoked and what I know and my conversations and watching, and the AJ is sort of a kind of that mad scientist, mad chef kind of guy. And what I mean by that is he knows his tobacco. So a lot of times when a cigar comes to be, it's always the concept comes first. I want medium strength. I want to do this, and then you work the components backwards. What he has done is basically kind of, especially since he's hybridized a lot of different strains himself. He owns a lot of fields. He's constantly working the tobaccos, buying tobacco. So and he'll take the ingredients and go, okay, this has got this flavor. I think I need to pair it with this, and this, and produce this particular cigar. So how the evolution of it is, the way I see it, is when he first started, Nicaragua tends to have a lot more oomph to the tobacco. It's known for being stronger. It's known for being spicier than, say, Dominican or Honduras. So I think the tobaccos he had, produced that medium full, kind of almost trademark that the AJ's become. Now, you look at all the cigars we have, you're absolutely correct. It has, we don't have anything that's true mild. It is a mild to medium full, and stronger from but as he's evolved as a cigar maker and a farmer and an agrarian, he's got more tobacco access to it, and now he's able to do something like you look at how long 12, 15 years before he produced the Dias de Gloria, which to me is his first really true Cuban style release. And you were correct, it was the last cigar he really released as new. But that was in 2019 because of the pandemic. We really didn't do anything last year, and we really don't have a whole lot planned for this year either. But we're waiting to see where the market's going to be, and you know how it is. Right now, if you've heard it from me, you've heard it from somebody else. Manufacturing is a nightmare right now. It's hard to produce a decent supply of cigars. That can be attributed to the pandemic because of labor issues, materials issues, and 2020 was such a great year for us that people are at home drinking and smoking more. We sold out of a lot of everything we had, and it's not like this is not like a carton of milk. We can't deliver one next week. It takes years to make a cigar. So to replace stocks, it takes time, and there's not a whole lot that we can do in the interim. We try and get what we have onto the marketplace, God bless the consumer has been very patient with us, taking whatever cigars they can get. But it's been a struggle sometimes. And so, but anyways, AJ, does that do it that way, and that's why this particular cigar is so different. Than you're correct to say that Dias de Gloria is different. And so when I say Cuban style, so two things about this cigar. Dias de Gloria means glory days. It harkens back to the glory days of Cuba. Obviously, AJ's Cuban. His dad was the one that worked with him, and taught him business. His dad still works with him today in Nicaragua. Does a lot of the work in the factories and the production side. And so they kind of decide this is our time to kind of put something that honors our heritage together. So this particular, especially with this rapper, it's one, like I mentioned, he plays, he's the mad scientist, This particular wrapper on the Dias de Gloria is a hybridized wrapper that he came up with himself. It's proprietary to us. It has a Cuban style flavor. So for those of you guys who haven't smoked a Cuban cigar, unlike a Nicaraguan cigar where when you light it, there's usually a little bit of a bite, a little bit of a blast, kind of grab your attention, and then it calms down a little bit, and then it builds back up. But there's always that kind of that background spice and that the tobacco has. This particular cigar, Cuban style, means that it starts off very smooth. It's almost like it's a mild cigar, but it builds nicely from the beginning on, and it stays smooth all the way throughout. And then the strength is sneaky strong. So you stand up after smoking a cigar that wasn't that strong, and you go, whoa, and it hits you. The nicotine comes later. So this is what. And
Dias de Gloria is a Nica Puro, right?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Most of his stuff is. We do use some wrapper variants, but a lot of the wrapper is stuff that he's grown, and most of the tobaccos are stuff that he's cultivating on his farms, and it's all Nicaragua, primarily fillers and fillers.
Yeah. So we got a few questions I want to pull, a few comments. One of which is from Tim saying he's a big fan of Ave Maria, mostly the Argentinum, and he wants to know your take on that cigar. He's been trying to get me on board for that, but as far as I understand, it's more of a CI exclusive to some degree.
Correct. So Ave Maria specifically, and then actually Diesel started as Cigars International exclusives because General Cigar is a sister company, and their parent companies own both entities. They moved Diesel over to or at least a version of Diesel over to general cigars, so you can buy brick and mortar diesel. Ave Maria has not gone that route yet. It is still essentially a catalog exclusive. Now, you know that that catalog has distribution, so if you want to bring it, it is available to you. To me, the stuff that he does, those things, those original brands for CI, Ave Maria, Diesel, the stuff that they're doing for CI, was meant to be strong. They requested stronger stuff. So, obviously it's been a while since I've smoked them because being on this side of the house, we don't really see a lot of those cigars. Those cigars go direct from the factory to that particular vendor. But I have smoked my share previously. It's, you can tell with AJ, it was sort of his, early phases, and he made a lot of strong cigars because that was the material he was getting. Subsequently, he's got, more diversity. Same thing in CI. But if you like Ave Maria, you're liking something that's going to be medium full to full. It is some of them can tend to be a spice bomb. Again, it's just one of those cigars that I would probably smoke later in the day because it's got that heavy duty. It's something you probably wouldn't do in the morning unless you're having a big breakfast. But they're just big cigars, and as AJ, whether it's our stuff or stuff he makes for other people, pricing is great. He's one of those guys that hates a $10 cigar. If at all possible, he will price it so that cigar is under $10 retail. That is his
and that's the crazy thing about it. I mean, there's a few brands that we carry that kind of have a similar avenue to it, but you have this like quality to AJ's tobacco, and then you see the price and you're like, okay, is this discounted? Or is there something wrong with the price? At least for me. I mean, I remember when we were kind of looking over to bring them in, I mean, it outprices a lot of things that you'll just find in the humidor, and it smokes better than most. I mean, his construction is kind of beyond scrutiny, and just for the smoke and for what you're paying is just it's a very unique experience. It's the AJ experience, really.
Right. And again, that's obviously as you evolve as a company, you need to be at different price points, and different people want different cigars. So now we have Ramona Jonas, we have Viva La Vida. But every one of our core lines, other than the 6x60s, and sometimes the more expensive materials like the Brazilian wrapper or this particular this hybrid, will push the price a little bit. But Sanitano, New World, Enclave, all of those lines, for the most part, carry, other than the 6x60s, retail price $9 or below, and that's the he has the ability to do that because he's churning out a ton more cigars, and when you do more volume, obviously costs are less. But it's the perfect combination for a smoker who likes Nicaragua because you're getting prime tobaccos, you're getting them rolled at one of the premier factories, and you're getting it at a value. I mean,
and Andrew, who's here in the shop, had mentioned the Cameroon. He says the perfect pairing is New World Cameroon at the Angel Stadium. That's
I was there last night. Watched my Giants beat. Sorry, I watched the Giants beat the Angels last night. It made me happy.
But even that cigar is like that's almost stupid affordable.
that's a prime example of what AJ is and who he is as a both a manufacturer and a business person. So the New World Oscuro, the red box, that's our horse. That's our best selling cigar. When that cigar hit the marketplace, it was $5.99 retail. It was a fantastic bargain. But as costs go up, mind you, this is now 8-10 years down the line. That cigar is still our bestseller. It's gone all the way to a total of about $7.99 retail. So, he's kept that price low. But to help, because people will complain, I missed it. When was that price? What does he do? He slots that Cameroon in. That Cameroon now comes in at that price point, and you can Cameroon wrapper for now $6.
Yeah.
So again, AJ is always kind of cognizant of where his marketplace is, and even though the horse is getting more expensive, let me give you an alternative. Let me give you something at that price point. Last call is the same way. Those sizes may be a little weird to people, but for the value, it can't be beat.
Right. So I have another question actually from Claudia, who's here as well, and she wants to know your thoughts on the Vegas show, that being TPE. How did you think that went? Did it go well? Did you see any
about TPE or PCA?
TPE.
TPE. So I've been to TPE probably 8-10 times in a row, and the show has evolved immensely, and that's due to who owns it. I won't go too far into details, but what it used to be was a show that was dedicated to a particular company, and they ran the show, and that even though they were one of the big customers, they made us participate because they wanted to kind of get us to give back to their business since they were one of our biggest customers. And all the business, even though we were there to exhibit, we had to run all the business through them. They've kind of become enlightened, and now they're running the trade show as a trade show, which means it was closed to the manufacturers who didn't do business with them. Now they've opened it to everybody, so now it's become a real trade show, and now you're starting to see a lot more cigar selection. They're trying to also cater because you want to make money on that. So on the plus side, it was very much a premium cigar show. It's also a vape and a CBD and that kind of stuff show as well. So it's we had our section, they had theirs. So sometimes there's a little cross pollination, but not a lot. But if you stuck on the cigar side, it's good to see smaller companies exhibit. And normally, the only platform that smaller companies would have is to go to PCA, because shows like this, they weren't open to the companies that weren't doing business.
Right.
Now they opened up the floor, and because there are less vendors and it's a smaller show, retailers have the opportunity to actually spend some time talking to people who they might not get to, at PCA. Well, and it's such a big show, So net is, it always surprises us because we go in there with very little expectation at TPE because we don't expect it to be the bigger show. And it always pleasantly surprises us how much business we do and the attendance, because that show is growing. So I think a lot more manufacturers plan to attend that show. It costs us less to exhibit. And, for the shops, it's another buying opportunity. Anytime you offer a special, it's a good thing, because then they can get a few more products in to their consumers as well. So
I've never myself personally been to PCA yet. We're probably planning on PCA 2022. Just the way it fell, I mean, the months being so close together didn't really help that situation. When
the show returns to January, I think that will help it too, because the timing was perfect for it. But because of COVID, it got punted till May. They got lucky to pull it off. I mean, we were literally the first trade show at the Las Vegas Convention Center since the pandemic. So there's national news crews there taking pictures of video of this, because they hadn't had a show there. So that alone made it valuable to be there, because just the exposure. Tobacco's leading the way back from COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And from what I hear from like PCA and such, when you have like the bigger players there, some of the smaller boutique brands are shoved in the corner or placed off to the side, harder to find. Whereas TPE, it's kind of this even playing field, or it seems like it.
It is. It isn't. You're absolutely correct. But this year, the big players will not be at PCA. I mean, the big four, but there are 11 pretty fair-sized companies that are not going to exhibit. But I think that, again, will help the boutiques too, because now those guys who are big buyers don't have to spend 6 to 8 hours in those booths and spend the biggest piece of their pie at the shows. They'll still do it, because those vendors will have specials, but now they can go and talk to, I really wanted to meet AJ. I really want to meet Skip Martin from Roma Craft. I want, So and now you have a chance to go sit down and talk to them and find out whether or not this is a company you want to partner with, and you can get behind, because truth is truth, right? Your boutiques need to be hand-sold, and this is why I appreciate you guys, because I know you get behind every brand you bring in. I've seen it, and that's only going to make it a better connection to your consumers. A lot of guys will bring in stuff, and because they've got 1,000 faces in their stores, stuff gets lost, And so if you're going to get boutiques, you kind of have to hand sell it and tell them the story and get people behind it, so that when they smoke it, they know something about it. Then they're just getting a random cigar and going, what the hell is this?
Right, exactly.
Well, and I do believe that people can, the retailer now will get a chance to actually talk to more people, and that's always going to be good for the smaller companies.
Right. Well, and I mean, and in all honesty, when we went to TPE this year, I mean, and we've kind of spent, since opening, we're going to hit our 2-year mark in August. Since opening, we've been really building the portfolio, and AJ was added unfortunately, 2 weeks prior to COVID. I think the shutdown happened while the boxes were coming in the mail. And that was when we were really trying to build what we wanted to carry. And AJ has become one of the biggest staples. When we met you guys at TPE, you're one of the main priorities we had to stop by, and hence we have the sampler tonight. But kind of getting behind those brands, it's you have to find those brands, I feel, that have the quality, the personal like relationship between, and then you have that confidence as a retailer of that this product is good. You have to try it, and the people behind it are just amazing people.
And you specifically, I mean, your reputation of your business is built on what you're recommending to people. And from what I've seen, you've been spot on and everything. I mean, there's not a person who won't go to you and say, Eric, just pick me out some stuff. I trust you, and you, because of being who you are, I'm not going to put what you feel is a bad cigar on anybody's hands. So you're believing every cigar in that humidor. That's the way it should be. And so if you could, from stick 1 to stick 1,000, that if you put it in that consumer's hands, they're going to like it because you've curated that collection well. And now
and I appreciate that. I think there's also
AJ is the bigger company.
Sorry, go ahead. What I was going to say is that I think too, being kind of like off the beaten path. You've been to our place. I mean, you kind of feel like you're driving in the middle of nowhere to get to our place in some degree. But that's really offering whatever cigar that someone's going to pick up. Why would they come back? Is it quality? Is it not quality? Can I just get this somewhere else that's closer to me? So it's not really just about finding something obscure, but it's finding something that is consistent and something that is good. I mean, that's happened with various brands that you've carried, and AJ's one of them.
Well, I gotta tell you, if I was meeting you for the first time, I would actually, and you were asking me advice on humidor selection, I would tell you, because you're a tourist destination, people to come seek you out and come out, if you're gonna smoke a cigar, they're gonna want something they know. It would be more, you're getting sort of that tourist visitor that wants something that they know. The Romeo Julietas, the Macanudos of the world.
Right.
So when when we had our discussions and you said, I prefer to do something, a little more boutique, a little more curated, and the guys that do come back here and smoke, that's awesome. You took the path of most resistance in my mind, but it turned out great, and you've developed a really great customer base.
Well, thank you. Well, and then we have another question here. Toby. Toby actually was a regular here. He moved out to Arizona, still orders from us online. And he's wondering, does AJ have a preferred size that he likes to blend to?
Most test blends will either be tested at Robusto or Toro these days. And most likely Toro, because Toro has surpassed Robusto as the most popular size. So, but basically, if you want to know what that blend was intended or how they meant to do it, you pick one of those two sizes first. Then usually the rest of the sizes are sort of blended to the size afterwards. But obviously, because Toro is the most popular size, most likely that's going to be the cigar that was the final blend put together for that size. So.
Yeah. Okay. And let's see. Chip has a question: is AJ having a PCA release this year?
So the answer is yes, but it really isn't a new cigar. The New World actually has 4 different lines to it. You've mentioned the Oscuro, the Cameroon, and the Connecticut. The 4th line was called Poro Especial. It's an all Nicaragua, Poro. That's why it's called that. Actually, that blend was AJ's first top 25 cigar as far as 4 or 5 years ago or so. But for some reason, they placed it in a box that was completely different than the rest of the New World line, even though it's actually a blend within that family. So what we decided to do this year is kind of bring it in line with the rest of the New World. So it's going to have that dress box versus the wood box. It's going to have, because, there's a color code for each one. The Oscar's red, the Cameroon's green. So it's going to have a black trim, black tape on the box. We tweaked the blend a little bit just to kind of, bring it in line a little with the rest of the New World, because it was a little bit stronger and it was definitely a completely kind of almost too different than everything else, because the New World family of cigars, you can taste that there's a link between the different blends. So we brought the New World Poro Especial, changed the leaf, brought it back in to the family. So that particular packaging and that particular new version of it will be available at the trade show. And we're hoping, because we believe it's a really great cigar. It just was put in the wrong kind of packaging, because all the other 3 New Worlds kill it. This one was a little further behind. So the tweaking and the change of packaging, we're hoping to bring it in line with the rest of the New World family. Okay.
Now, I got to imagine, kind of talking with all these blends and just kind of you're saying like strength, and back and forth. I mean, you have your own tastes and your own palate, and every palate's different. For some of the companies like AJ's, do you find yourself leaning towards, hey, I really like this cigar, but it doesn't have as much of a recognition, maybe as some of like the New World stuff? And if so, what are some of those blends?
So, especially with the New World, it doesn't need a lot of help from us to sell it. So rarely do we get to smoke it. I would tell you that the New World Oscuro is the one that I probably smoke the least, just because we really, I know what it tastes like. Everybody knows what it tastes like. It doesn't need a whole lot of help to sell. So generally, what we get to smoke and we're getting to try is stuff that we're trying to promote and bring it in line with everything else. So, and the new stuff. My preference is I'll trade strength for flavor. I love a medium. Yeah. And we've all done the evolution. I started smoking Dominican mild, medium, full strength, and then coming back to I think that's the natural evolution. After you've gone through all three different types of cigar, different strength levels, most people come back because they prefer flavor to strength. So give me a medium body complex cigar. It doesn't need to be full strength. I mean, I don't mind strength. It could be on the medium full side. It could be on the mild to medium side, but it has a ton of flavor and especially the sweetness. Especially if you retrohale, the back end sweetness on a cigar is very important to me because I think that just kind of opens up all the flavors. So in the AJ line, Diaz de Gloria has been my favorite. I think that's my style cigar. It's right down the middle. For most people, it might be a little stronger. I realize that I smoke so many cigars that when I think something's medium, it's probably a little stronger than most of the smoker who smokes less.
They
haven't built up the palate callus like I have, for strength. So, but I love that, and then for the stronger side, the two cigars that I picked are probably my two favorites in line. The third is Bellas Artes, the natural, because again, that's the same kind of style as Diaz de Gloria. It's a very strong cigar. That's actually the most popular cigar in our office. People love smoking the Bellas Artes natural. In Miami, when we get they open stuff to smoke, and that's the one that's always gone first. So I mean, that's not to say that I don't smoke the other stuff. I love the San Antonio Habano. When the Oval was around, the Oval Habano was my favorite. And essentially, it's the same brand, just different shaped. So same blend, more or less. So I will smoke the Habano as well. But if you ask me to kind of pick, my first choice would always be Diaz de Gloria. For now, things change. For now, that's my smoker. Who knows what he can do next, right?
Right.
I'll put the flip side to the Viva La Vida, phenomenal cigar, but I can't smoke that more than a couple of times a month because it's really, really heavy. And it's just not that pepper sometimes forward. Gets to me. So we love that cigar. People love it. We sell a ton of it. It's just like I said, it wouldn't be my first choice because that's not where my strength preference is. But phenomenal cigar. We sell a ton of it. People love it. So.
And kind of how you touched on the Bellas Artes natural, which is, I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a hybrid seed as well.
It's also a different hybrid, correct?
So when we opened an account with AJ and brought them in, that was one of the first we brought in. And then for some reason, throughout the year, we stopped ordering it. And at TP, I was like, you know what? Let's bring it in. And we're almost gone with them already. Like, it's very elegant for AJ. I don't use that word lightly. To me, it's a very elegant, complex cigar with kind of how you were saying that ratio of flavor and strength is going to be more medium sided, at least to me.
But what's funny is when I first started with AJ 4 or 5 years ago, that cigar had just come out and he put it out and we all smoked it and we were just like, this is phenomenal. This is the most balanced, it's got that sweetness, it's got a ton of flavor, and it didn't sell. I mean, it was not very popular. New World was kicking its ass. San Antonio was kicking its ass. And the funny part was 2019 rolls around and they introduced that Maduro and they're like, this Maduro is going to lead to people smoking the Habano. I was like, they're completely different smokers. I have a hard time believing that. I was a doubter, right? And then the Maduro comes out and gets all those accolades. And sure enough, the Habano, the hybrid has received a lot of interest afterwards. And this last year, when people are bringing it in and it started selling, people are starting to realize this is a really good cigar. So that, and also with the pandemic, there's not a lot of new stuff. So what becomes paramount is what's new to you, right? Because your consumer still wants to smoke something different. So now you're just into a different part of the humidor that they may not have considered before the pandemic. So that's helped a lot of brands that maybe we're not experiencing, the love that we wanted. they got it now. I'll give you another example. You don't carry Espinosa, but there's three. Their primary brands are 601, right? 601 red, 601 blue, 601 green, Habano, Maduro, Oscuro, and the green was always the third behind the Habano and the Maduro. And the other two were always, back order. We were getting, back and forth. The green didn't move as quickly. Well, the pandemic hits, and people, well, what else have you got? Oh, let me try the 601 green.
Yeah.
It's now, on level with the other two. So that's been really great for us. Is that people, for cigars that have been kind of forgotten, have now become, people are smoking again, because that was the alternative to not getting having a new product. Now that we're back on track, and if we can ever get the factories in line, you'll see more new product. There will be a lot of new stuff on the floor in July, but not as much as it was before, because we're still trying to keep up demand with the existing stuff. So it's hard to kind of launch new stuff when you're still trying to make sure you get caught up on back orders for the existing lines as well.
Right. Well, and we also got Mike dropping a comment about the Enclave broadleaf, which a lot of our customers here at the shop are broadleaf smokers like myself. Connecticut broadleaf, I just love the tobacco. I love the different incarnations that we see in the industry. And the Enclave seems to be a bit stronger than some of the other ones. But even that price point, like, it's difficult to understand at least to me, difficult to understand Cameroon and broadleaf being at a cheaper price point. And I'm assuming that has a lot to do with just AJ's production across the board.
Correct. So that Enclave broadleaf, to me, is the strongest cigar that AJ makes at the moment, with possibly the Viva La Vida being those two. But for our own production lines, because Viva La Vida is a brand we distribute, we don't actually own. But for brands AJ owns, the Enclave broadleaf is a powerhouse. And it has to be, because the Connecticut broadleaf is a very dominant wrapper. And so if you put it on a blend that doesn't have the punchiness or the strength to hold up to it, all you're going to taste is wrapper. And, while that's a great thing, it makes it sort of a one-note cigar. I don't know if you've noticed, but some of those cigars that are broadleaf tend to not have that complexity, or not as much, I should say, because that leaf is so dominant. So, what we try to do is, you try and kick it up a notch so that the binder and the filler can come through a little bit, and you can get a little bit of harmony. But in terms of the, it is an availability issue. Like in 2019, 2020, there was a broadleaf shortage. A lot of people were using it, and it became expensive. AJ, being AJ, of course, has now a very vast portfolio of tobacco, so he's able to weather that storm. But it goes in cycles. Sometimes some wrappers are more popular, and so they become more expensive, and then some of the other stuff stays the same price, or maybe even goes down in price. It doesn't happen very often. So right now, while there's a little bit of a renaissance in Cameroon, there isn't a lot of guys using it, because it was a much more popular wrapper 25 years ago. Obviously, you've still got Fuente and a few others. And there's a difference in the Cameroons too. I mean, like the true Cameroon stuff coming from Africa, Fuente and a few other companies almost hold a monopoly over. So, we've got to grow it sometimes ourselves, or buy it from different places. And sometimes that tobacco isn't quite as expensive because it's not the brand name. It's just as good, but it gives us the opportunity to give you more value. We're acquiring a tobacco that is very good at a less price, and we were able to package it with a cigar. That's what he was able to do with the New World Cameroon, because he was able to find a very good supply at a reasonable price and offer that to his consumers. Broadleaf, what are you going to do? You got to buy it for whatever market price is, and it does take longer to process broadleaf because it's a Maduro, and so obviously it's going to take longer time to heat it to a higher temperature, because it's a slower process. If you're going to do it correctly, I mean, you could do it faster, but then you're cutting a corner and it doesn't quite have the same flavor. So that's the other process. To properly process that leaf, it takes time.
Yeah. So like kind of with like broadleaf shortage and kind of the supply and demand issue that the industry is seeing right now, is things like packaging, boxes and stuff starting to create a bottleneck for production.
Everything is creating a bottleneck right now. It's systemic, and because of the pandemic, all the problems that you hear about in the news about supply chain disruptions we're experiencing in the cigar business. Nicaragua just made a recent change that they are controlling the primary wood that they get to use boxes is now not being allowed to be used to make cigar boxes. So suddenly, So suddenly, every one of the box factories now are telling us it could be months on box orders. months.
Wow.
And so, because now they've got to find an alternative source for wood, and you know how that goes, right? You usually
Right.
say about plywood being 5x, that value. So
Yeah.
that's something that they face, and that gets
Yeah.
passed down to us, which gets passed down to. So I do believe that this is going to be the year that you see manufacturers offering refill bundles as a viable option. A lot of companies don't want to do
Okay.
that because there's some truth to this. When people see a cigar come out of a bundle, they think it's a less expensive cigar. But if I'm putting my best cigars in a bundle and I put a sticker on that says refill bundle, and you're saving a few dollars because I'm not charging you for a box, hopefully consumers will see that it's the same cigar and not just say because it comes out of the bundle must be different. And that's not the case. The case is
Right.
we are having issues with box factories, and I'll tell you. And if a box goes from 4 to 7, normally a box costs $4 to $7 to make in a box factory, depending on how ornate it is, right? Whether it's a 10 count box or a 20 count box, it's the same price. A box is a box. A labor is a labor. If that now suddenly goes $10, $12 because of the materials, now and I have to charge that or more, increase my prices because of that. That changes things, right? Would you rather take a
Right.
cigar out of a bundle and save that money? So I think that's it's been sort of available. Certain companies have been doing it, but I think this may be the year that the industry as a whole kind of pushes it because it's just we have to. It's sometimes and you don't want to wait. I mean, do you want to wait 6 months for a cigar that can a box for it, or do you want to say, okay, so I can
Yeah.
get you the cigar sooner in a bundle? That's the option.
We recently on Sunday for Father's Day we had Ian from Dapper Cigar Company,
I
and
love Ian. He is my
yeah
friend. I appreciate
yeah
that guy.
he hung out for a while, and he was kind of saying the exact similar thing you're saying about is with Nicaragua having that like this new worry about like production of wood and such like that, and kind of the problems it's resolving. It's crazy because it's like I would have to think on a manufacturer side, it's got to be the most difficult thing to deal with, where your cigars are ready, but the packaging is not, and like how to ship them, how to hold on to them, that sort of thing.
That's just one layer too, because now that there's a labor short, you can't get an Uber, around now because nobody's driving Uber. A lot of guys, who work in our factories and our farms aren't coming to work because, COVID is still relatively rampant in those places compared to where we are as a society. So, if they're a bit sick, they're staying home. Nor do you want them to come down. Now,
Right.
most of the factories put up partitions, there are masks, and but again, they just don't know who's going to show up for work, and then that means we don't know how many cigars we're going to be able to produce. On top of that, the labor shortage, trickles down to truck drivers. We can't find somebody to truck. People don't realize that if normally we out of Nicaragua, the primary method of shipping cigars to the United States is on container ships, but the ports to handle all those containers are in Honduras. So the cigars have to be trucked from Esteli to the coast of Honduras so they can be put on boats,
Oh
labor
man.
ships. Well, if nobody's driving the trucks, that's issue number one. You get to Honduras, and nobody's working the docks. That's issue number two. All right. So, and then the alternative is to fly, air freight it. And normally that's not an issue because normally a cigar might cost 1 cent, 2 cents to ship on a boat, shipping wise, and about a nickel if you air freight it. Right. That was the previous pricing. Well, because the United States is not allowing flights in commercial. We used to buy excess cargo space on commercial flights to truck stuff in. I mean, fly stuff in, because they're not allowing flights from the U.S. and all the flights in Nicaragua are coming in from other countries and like Avianca and the Mexican and Spanish and other airlines. There's just no capacity. There's 1 or 2 flights a day doing cargo, and so again, that stuff has to wait till and that's gone up exponentially as well. So you're kind of stuck, no matter what we do. And again, you don't want to instantly knee jerk and pass those costs on. So sometimes we're bumping that as an industry just so we can keep that flow of things going, and just to make sure that if things return to normal, there's no disruption in things, because you don't want to keep raising and lowering prices according to market conditions. But sometimes you have to.
Yeah. So I kind of, as a brand owner yourself, because you have Pier 28, we have actually a question from Rob here at the shop. Are you doing anything new with your cigar and your brand? And also, what does that look like with all these troubles that the industry is seeing?
Right. So right now, the brand's almost on a little bit of hiatus because I can't get cigars like everybody else. I'm having the same issues. I'm hoping to have it back in the September, October timeframe. But I make it, in much smaller batches. So that's part of the problem too, is that, without, again, you try as a manufacturer to program your orders. We want this month, this month, this month, and that includes your contract brands like working on Arizona. And sometimes those brands, the contract brands get kind of pushed aside. AJ's done the same thing, to keep his stuff humming. Sometimes you delay other things, and that's what happens. As for new stuff, yeah, there are plans for it. I mean, like I said, 2019, everybody punted. I'm sorry, 2020, everybody punted. And same thing with 2021, because even in January and February, you didn't know whether or not PCA or PCPR was, TP.
Yeah.
So I just made a decision. It's like, if I can't even get cigars, why try and put something new together and rush everything? So I think what you'll see is the normalization back in 2022. I think that, I'll be back on the marketplace with something new, hopefully in 2022. I only launch one new brand a year, too, being small, so I don't have the wherewithal to launch brands every quarter like some other companies do, or every month like some companies do. So I hopefully it'll be worth the wait. That's kind of my situation. The tobacco situation normalizes, the transportation situation normalizes, and so that when the time comes for it, it'll be able to get it to the marketplace at a reasonable price, and it'll be something worth smoking.
Okay. And I don't know how much you can say or not say, but I know you're also somewhat involved with Pravada Cigar Club with Pier 28, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they've been a great partner. That's part of the reason why I'm out of cigars was they bought a lot of the inventory at the end of the year because, like everybody else, they needed cigars. So every time something shows up on there, I know that I don't have much of an online presence. There's only a couple of websites that sell my stuff, and that's because that's by design too. I don't have enough inventory to sell to the big guys anyway. But they people are really, his Pravada's club members are really passionate about what they get. So, whenever one of my cigars shows up in there, I'll get 300, 400 followers. I get everybody's taking a picture of it. It's the best advertising I can do, because people are social media now is where people go to get their cigar information. And so, I being a one-man band, I don't do a whole lot of it myself. I just don't have the time for it. These guys are doing it for me. So, it's been a great partnership with those guys.
Nice. Now, a few questions I normally ask some of the guests we've had on before, just out of curiosity and from their take on it. One of them would be, amongst the brands that you rep here on the West Coast, that being New World, your own brand, Pier 28, Black Label Trading, Espinosa, are there other brands that you like to smoke as well? Do you have time to smoke those? And if so, what are some of those that stand out?
Like I said, I'm a cigar defer, so it's not like it used to be when I first started, but where I was able to kind of smoke that handle and everything. So many little brands and boutiques have popped up, and there's not a day that goes by where somebody shows me something like I've never seen that before. It's hard to keep up, but my class of cigars, medium bodied, full flavored. So one of them I love smoking everyday. That's my everyday. I carry Illusione. Illusione has that everyday line. That's one of my favorite everyday smokers. The Dias de Gloria with AJ. With Espinosa, it was the Laranja. I love that cigar. But the problem with that one is the Brazilian Habano wrapper that goes in that cigar has been such a difficult wrapper to get, and what's available now is just not good. That Eric has sort of put that brand on hiatus because he's like, I'd rather not have it on the market, but that cigar is driven so much by its wrapper that if even if I substitute a little bit or put something that's less quality, people will know. And so he didn't do that. So with that kind of cigar, outside of that, I smoke Carrera Esteli. I love that cigar. The basic Sobremesa, the Huayhuense, those kind of cigars, I'm talking about, that medium-bodied, full-flavored cigar. Those are the things that I kind of smoke on a regular basis. Padron's always been my favorite, before I got into the cigar business. 64 Torpedo. I don't even smoke torpedoes anymore, but the 64 Torpedo Maduro is my favorite cigar out of their portfolio. And, I still use it as a special occasion cigar. I'm blessed in that I could probably smoke that cigar every day, but I don't because I want it to remain special. And so I use it as an occasion cigar to celebrate things. And it's my standard for a $25 cigar. If you're going to smoke at that price point, given what you have out there, Davidoff, Opus, and a lot of other stuff, that would be my choice at that price point. Because my palate's Nicaraguan anyway. It's always kind of been. I started smoking Dominican, but my entire portfolio is Nicaragua. That's what I prefer. So that's where my palate's at.
Okay. And then a question that I haven't actually asked many other people, but being that you we're a cigar rep, still are a cigar rep, a broker, a brand owner. What is a very unusual situation that you've had within going to a cigar shop that kind of stands out, like maybe out of the norm? What if you don't mind sharing a unique
Sure.
experience?
I can tell you a bunch of stories. I once had a guy have a heart attack at one of my events, and he basically crashed the display case. God bless, he lived. But
Okay.
if you're not feeling well like that, you probably shouldn't come to a cigar event and smoke cigars. I once did an event in another town where a guy comes up and he's pulling an oxygen tank behind him. He's got the connection to his nose, and he's looking at me. He's like, "Should I do the $1 deal or $2 deal?" I'm like, "Do I go to hell and sell them two, or do I do nice?" So I sold them two. Yeah, of course I did. I once had a retailer. I mean, the guy's still there to this day. I hope he's not watching, but he's a close talker, right? And so I was taking an order from him, and he starts to pinch me on the chin like this as I'm taking the order. And so I once presented that at a sales meeting because they asked for weird situations. And the guys at the sales meeting were like, "What did you do?" I was like, "Well, as long as he kept ordering, letting him pinch. As soon as it was over, then you step back." So,
Yeah.
you do certain things, I've had, I've had guys, say some very racist things to me at events. And it's very rare in this business, but it has happened. I once had a retailer stop me in a pitch and tell me that, ask me what ethnicity I was, and I'm American, but Chinese American ethnically. And he said, so I told him, "Man, so, son, are you Chinese?" I'm like, "Yes, Chinese American." And he goes, "I killed a lot of you in Korea." I'm like, "Americans?"
What?
Okay, Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay.
You just never know what some people are going to say, but 99% of the time, and I'm still in this business because people are great. I mean, all my friends, everybody that I know and I hang out with, and it's is either somehow related to me being in the cigar industry. I think about that all the time. I'm like, do I have any normal friends? I'm like, well, no, I really don't. So that's but yeah, you work long enough, you do see a few weird things like that.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. And I would also ask is how many cigars as all those labels that I had mentioned, how many cigars a day do you suppose that you smoke on average?
So it used to be more. I was known to smoke 10 cigars a day when I'm working. And that's part of it's a byproduct of the job. I mean, you go visit 4 or 5 shops a day. You're always smoking at least one cigar with the owner. That's part of it because that's our marketing, right? I'm going to hand you a cigar. Eric, try this, and we talk about it. You want some? That's sort of the whole thing. We don't have other ways. Like if I had to dial for dollars from a phone, I'd be a lot skinnier guy. I feel like I'm a terrible salesman. I go down, I hang out with my friends with a cigar, and sometimes they want to buy some. That's how it's been. So
Okay.
I'm sorry. What was the original quote? I forgot. I got
Just like on average per day, like how much you find yourself smoking?
What I've done is I've cut out I used to smoke like get up, get in the car, light up, drive, smoke another cigar. So those cigars in the car, the 2 or 3 that I would smoke, I've kind of stopped. That's if I can't wait till I get to the next shop to smoke a cigar, then I've got a problem. So now it's about 6 to 8 per day. Still a ton. It's not what it used to be. I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, Rocky. When I worked for Rocky Patel, he used to introduce me as a rep that hurt the profit margins the most. Eric still does this. He's done the math. He says the first 200 boxes he makes a year, Tim Wong smokes. He's not wrong, but still, you do the math on the cigars, and that's so yeah, it's still a lot more than it should be, but it's not as much as it used to be.
Okay. Well, and I will say, I mean, having different reps come through the shop, meeting different people at the trade shows here and there. One thing I've always appreciated about you as a rep is, and it happened on AJ and it happened on Black Label, is it wasn't a sales pitch. It wasn't you need to buy this because you can get this free. It was more of this like, here's some cigars. When you're ready, talk to me. Yeah. And really, the brands you carry speak for themselves, really.
And on top of that, to me, it's always a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Yeah, I got to come back in and see you, whatever it may be, 5, 6, 7 times a year. I want to be able to continue to business. And I'd rather have you stay in business because I could sit there and say that you got my stuff, and you're a good person where you will buy that package from me to do that. But if I sell you 20 boxes on a given day, and I come back a month later and you still have 18 of them, That doesn't do me any good. Doesn't do you any good, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather have you buy 6, push it, and go, God, Tim, that stuff really sold. I need another order. That works better for both of us. So that's sort of been the style. It's a West Coast style. Most of the reps, I'm sure you know, here are salsa guys, because this is how this coast works. East Coast, I've seen it. They work a little bit differently. It's much more of a high pressure kind of, because that's just the way that culture is over there. So
right.
And I'm not all. I mean, that's 100% that way, but it tends to have a little more here. And like I said, everybody you work with is probably very similar to myself. I know everybody around here. And that's the same thing. They're never going to try and overload you with something because it doesn't do us any good, and it doesn't promote us well. So,
right. Well, and Chip was telling the on AJ's character. He says that Robert Holt tells a great story about having the kind of getting burned by a different blender. And when we went to see AJ, he had like a huge contract, and AJ just stood up and said, "We'll build this on a handshake on making Southern Draw cigars." Don't know if you have anything to speak on that with Robert Holt's relationship with AJ, because Southern Draw is another big brand that we carry here.
So, sure. And I know, I know Robert a little bit. I know AJ well. I know how AJ is. He is a ruthless businessman who has a heart of gold. If he likes you, obviously, it's going to be, whatever you need, we'll build something for you. Just don't cross AJ. Because if you make him mad, whole different ballgame. So you do business with AJ, stay on AJ's good side. That's my advice to you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and I want to thank you for joining us on the show. And for those watching, we do have a killer AJ sampler. Right now, it is available on our website. If you click on the link in this video, it'll take you to our website. And once again, this deal that we're running with the sampler, it's a really good illustration of what AJ can do with tobacco, as well as the price point is almost unbeatable. So if you're a veteran AJ smoker, or if you're kind of new to some of his blends, it works out both ways. And Tim, I want to thank you for joining us and really providing the opportunity of AJ Fernandez here at Oakland Tobacconist.
I've got this much cigar, so you can got me for a few more minutes. So 10 or 15.
So ask my question.
So, I ain't going anywhere till this is done. So if you have more questions, you please fire away.
So we do have a question from Matt, wondering, and I know the chances are probably slim, but he's wondering, what would it take to get AJ to come to a shop, or even a shop here like Oakland Tobacconist?
So AJ is unfortunately not very comfortable in doing events. Part of it is a language thing. Part of it is it's just not his style. He's much happier, working the factory, working the fields. That's where he's, he feels like he's most comfortable. It does suck for us sometimes because I get requests all the time, and I think he'd be just fine. I think he, represent, but that's a personal choice on his part. He's more comfortable there. So,
okay.
It's one of those things where, I hate to say no. That is one of those things where it's just probably, it's just going to be because I just know he doesn't like to do that. And he says no to the big vendors. It's not just you, so don't take it personally. It's just something he doesn't like to do.
So I've got to ask this question because we've had Andy actually drop this question twice. Mm-hmm. Where is there, and if so, where is the smoking section at Angel Stadium? Is that a thing?
So yes, there was. It is no longer there. They changed it because of COVID. But if you've been to Angel Stadium, there's a Budweiser pavilion on the fourth deck so down the right field line. There's also, besides the Budweiser pavilion, there's a Bullet Bourbon section as well. So it's all up there, right next to the Bullet Bourbon section on the farthest part of right field, the furthest part away from home plate. They used to have maybe 8x8 section that had red tape on the floor and one high top. If you wanted to smoke, you had to stand inside that red box. If you were outside that box, you couldn't smoke. Now, the only thing on the floor was red tape. So you tell me the difference between standing on this side of the line and that side of the line. But we would stand there the entire game, and you can't see the game from that section. You had to run to the rail. If something happened, then run back to the smoking section. But you stood there for 3 hours and smoked cigars. It was fantastic. So there used to be a smoking section at the Angel Stadium.
Oh no!
They took it away this season because of COVID.
Oh man!
Yeah. I was disappointed. I was looking forward to smoking cigars yesterday. They're like, no more smoking section. So.
Well, and with what, like how we were kind of talking about like AJ and being at events and such, what was your first meeting with him? Like, how did you meet him down in Nicaragua?
Yeah, I'll tell you the story. I actually didn't meet him in Nicaragua. I met him of all places. The first time I ever ran to AJ Fernandez was in Cuba, of all places, right? So I happened to be down there, and I've been blessed to be able to travel there a few times. This was 2000 and I want to say 2007, and I was at the Robina farm. So I was visiting. I knew the old man. I knew Hiroshi back in the day. And whenever we went to Havana, we took a trip out there. And Panada del Rio is not close. It's a 2.5-hour drive. And there are no street signs in Cuba. Basically, if you know how to get there, you ask directions. And they'd say, you see the rock over there, turn right over there. When you get to the cow in the field, go left. It's a hard place to find, right? So we were sitting there smoking with the old man. And AJ, this guy walks up. Who's this guy? He shows up, boots, black hat. He's carrying a bottle of Martell, cognac. I think it was cognac. I don't know what Martell is, but so he comes up to the old man, and he's known the old man for years. And I'm in the middle of smoking with those guys, and he just sits right down, pours the old man a shot, hands him a bunch of cigars. He goes, "I need you to tell me about these cigars." And the old man's very gracious. He smokes the cigars, and he goes, "I love this. This is fantastic." That's where I got the business card. I don't know. I was telling somebody else, it may not have been you, but I have one of AJ's original business cards. So when I joined the company, I showed him that card. He goes, "Where'd you get this?" I'm like, "You don't remember." I mean, I met you. He goes, "Actually, I do remember." I was like, "What the fuck is Chino? Excuse my language." And why is he sitting here in the middle of Cuba talking to the old man? So, but that was the very first time I met. I was working for Padilla at the time, and I had to call Padilla and go, "Who the hell is this guy?" He goes, "Oh, this is AJ. You pay attention to what he's going to do. He's going to be a monster." And he wasn't wrong. The guy ended up being a monster. Yeah.
So did AJ at the time, because he was making stuff for CI, did he have his own?
Yeah, he had his own little operation, a tiny little operation that's still there.
Okay.
And now it's grown to three factories, or almost four. I think somebody told me the other day about another one. So
yeah,
he's an absolute monster.
Well, and I would be curious to hear what your opinion is of this, because I've heard from other people, and I don't know if it's true, that he kind of got his start through Diesel. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, that was one of the brands. But I mean, to this day, AJ's biggest contract customer is Cigars International. We do anywhere from 11 to 13 million cigars a year for that company. That is still the biggest client of his. He has a very special relationship with those guys, and those are the guys that put him on the map. So Diesel, Ave Maria, bunch of different bundle brands. When he first started, he was doing the cigars he handed to Robina was the first brand he did for those guys. It was a brand called Sol Cubano. I don't know whether or not that brand is still for sale at CI, but that was the brand he was pushing at that point. So it is still the biggest customer. I mean, he does business with General directly, with Altadis, Southern Draw. He does a ton of house brands, Viva La Vida. So yeah, everybody loves having a cigar that's made by AJ, but that Cigars International relationship is what put him on the map, and it's still the most important relationship with the company.
Well, and like, okay, so then you see Diesel as a kind of a brand start from CI, and now it's like a national brand that people are carrying, and they have their Whiskey Row, and I heard that he had a lot of reservations about putting tobacco in barrels.
I don't know if you know Justin Andrews. I mean, I've been blessed to work with that guy. I know him very well. He's the one that's the brand manager for Diesel. It was sort of his concept to kind of bring that brand back to brick and mortar, and he has a lot of ideas that that are to the normal cigar maker. It's crazy, right? All these guys want to do is roll their cigars, put them in the aging room, package them, sell them. That's what they know. When these guys show up and say, "Well, my idea is to put them to ferment the cigars or the tobacco in whiskey barrels, or let's do this, or let's do this," the first thing is like, "Who the fuck are you? Get this?" I keep swearing. Who the heck are you? And why? And why are you suggesting this? What do you know about tobacco? But creativity is sometimes always something that is. At first, kind of people just kind of give you that curious look. So, to AJ's credit, he certainly, I mean, he's not going to do all of them, but he'll take Justin's ideas and run with them. And, sometimes you get something like Whiskey Row, and sometimes you get stuff that will never be heard of. It's buried in the back of the factory because the thing came out so horrible. It happens, but you got to try it. Right? So, that in that sense, I'm very thankful to Justin because he's pushed AJ to think outside the box a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, because you get, when you have your method and it's tried and true, you don't want to mess with it, but you also have to evolve as a company, and this is where boutiques have really kind of changed the marketplace. They come in with new ideas. I mean, Nicaragua as a whole is kind of a new concept because, if you talk to the old masters, guys like Carlito Fuente and those guys who have been in this business for a long time, they'll tell you that if you like smoking Nicaraguan tobacco, you're smoking what they would call under fermented tobacco, because Nicaragua uses a short fermentation period. Traditionally, in Dominican, tobaccos are fermented 18 to 24 months, which gives you a perfect medium-bodied cigar. So if you go to like General Cigar, you go to Altadas, for many years they could never make a strong cigar because their process was so tried and true that they would give you a perfect medium. But it tried to launch, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories in the cigar business. This is before I joined. I worked for General for many years. But they launched a cigar probably 15 years ago called Diablo, right? And they put chili pepper on the box. And they advertised it as the strongest cigar ever made. That was the launch. The cigar gets to retail, and it's no better than medium. And they had to recall everything because everybody's like, this isn't even close to strong, right? But to them, it was. For their process, it was strong. So Nicaragua tends to use a more Cuban technique, which is 30 days, 60 days, 90 days fermentation. And that tobacco does have that's where the strength and the mineral, the earthiness comes from, because that tobacco, when you ferment, you're cooking out essentially the minerals and impurities that tobacco picks up when you're blowing it.
Yeah.
And so, to get it to be completely out, it takes 18 to 24 months. But if you do it for 6 months, you're going to leave a little bit of a bite. And what happened with Nicaragua is, when people start moving there, they let the marketplace decide. Americans like that bite. And so that's how Nicaragua grew, because it was so different than the cigars that they were getting. And if you smoke a lot in Nicaragua, it's different than traditional Dominican or stuff with Honduran tobacco in it. So, now it's, it didn't used to be, but now it's on parallel. In terms of number of exports, Nicaragua exports as many cigars as Dominican does. And Dominican was the leader for many, many years, So that's sort of how, the new manufacturers have kind of changed the marketplace, in that, you're bringing new concepts that, the same thing with some of the stuff you see now, the stuff that has a lot of designs on it. Black Label has some of those affectations, Romograph, a lot of those guys. I mean, that's the labor of love to make those artistic style cigars. And it was, people are never going to pay for something, it's going to smoke the same. That was the philosophy, closed feet, pigtails, all those things that we love as a market, as cigar smokers. They didn't want to give it to you because it cost them more money. It prevented the cigars from being released sooner. From a standpoint, they're like, no, it's all about the tobacco, and that's a great driving force. But sometimes, a little innovation never hurt anybody, right? So
yeah. Well, and we have actually a question from Derek here that kind of leads into that, because you're talking about some of the people that have been in tradition and industry forever and their way. So then you have something like Monte Cristo, and there's of course the collaborations with AJ Monte Cristo. How does that happen? And also, is it often collide with like Nicaraguan tradition and Dominican tradition, or? Sure.
So, again, as the business has evolved, General and Altus, those companies would never, ever, kind of farm their cigars out. They've always made everything. They own the factories, they own the tobacco. Why would we want to have somebody else do our cigars for us? Well, working for those companies, whereas working from a boutique, you're driving a sleek sports car, you can maneuver in and out of situations quickly. Working for General is like working on a big aircraft carrier. To make it go this way, is a big change. So, again, the market's evolving. They started to try a little bit. You see Rafael Nodal over there at Altadas now. Altadas did, many years back, they did a collaboration with Tatuaje for Henry Clay. Mm-hmm. And those things brought, new smokers to the category, which is exactly what they were doing. They didn't realize how good of a success these programs are. Now you see it all the time. I mean, Espinosa with General, the Warzone, that's a fantastic cigar. Something that General would never make. A strong Cameroon, that's not in their wheelhouse. But they let somebody else do it, and it's great for them because if it fails, they can blame their partner. If it doesn't fail, they've got a hit on their hands. And so what you're going to see is, both from the General and the Alta side, you're going to see more of these collaborations, and it's happening, within the smaller companies too. AJ and Hochi Blanco put out the San Latano Dominicano about 4 or 5 years ago, and that's Dominican Nicaragua coming together to produce a cigar, which is something that's kind of unheard of. I mean. That's not to say that Dominican blends don't have some Nicaragua in them, but to advertise and say, hey, these are two of the trendiest cigar makers right now coming together and putting together a cigar, it's fantastic. Yeah. We're getting, outside of the box thinking, and that's great for a cigar smoker because, you get to try more things. Ideas that would have been considered verboten, 10 years ago. Now it's coming.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and I don't think it's been released yet, but I even heard buzz about like Padron doing a collab with
Hmm.
Fuente as well.
That really wasn't a collaboration. It was more to honor, both Carlos Fuente and Jose Padron passed in the same year. Well,
Mhm.
if, those are very rooted family companies, and they decided that they were going to honor their patriarchs, and so Fuente was going to use some of Padron's tobacco or make a cigar, in a sort of a Padron style, and Padron was going to do a Dominican, and it's a very limited kind of a. I don't even know if it's a charity or not, but they were going to do a small amount for each size. 500 boxes, I think was a number for each, to honor, the patriarchs of their families. I think it's a wonderful idea because, those two guys are instrumental in the cigar business. They built a lot of what we have today. So I think it's a fantastic idea to remember, two of the giants in our business.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, a lot of times when we talk to like we had Nick Melillo last
Mm-hmm.
week, we kind of asked like I know it's kind of hard to pick your favorites out of what you've blended. It's kind of like asking who's your favorite child. If you were to say some of the highlights that you enjoy smoking that are AJ collabs, not necessarily in his portfolio, but things that you've had that
Mm-hmm.
he's has a hand in, what are some of those highlights that you enjoy?
I mean, obviously, you mentioned it earlier, but the Rose of Sharon, I think, is one of the that's one of the cigars that I wish I had in my portfolio. It's fantastic, Connecticut. I like some of the stuff like that he's done for General for sure, like that Hoyo Dark Sumatra, for a more full-bodied, more full-strength cigar, phenomenal.
Hmm.
The Punch Diablo that they did, General not letting go of their names, phenomenal cigar. I like the Upman. The Altman, I think, is medium bodied. So I do smoke a few of those. I don't get a whole lot of the Romeo and Monte Cristo that he's done, so I'm not that familiar. But those are some of the cigars. I mean, I get to smoke a lot of it with Espinosa. I mean, most people don't realize, but half of Espinosa's portfolio is made in AJ's factory. The
Oh
Murcielago,
wow.
all the 601s, the new Laranja Escoro with the Brazilian Maltafina wrapper, all made by AJ's factories. And that's by design because we would buy a lot of tobacco from AJ, and AJ's like, well, if you let me make it, help me out with my capacities on my factories, I'll give you a good deal. So now we have access to AJ tobaccos, and because he's rolling it, it's just something we can focus on the Espinosa brands that are rolled out of Lazona. And Lazona's a small factory. Lazona's got 12 pairs, 15 pairs. AJ's got 300 pairs. So
Yeah.
it makes a more consistent supply because he's able to program it better than we can. So it
Okay.
helps us out, and then gives us access to tobaccos that as much as we try and do our best to source tobacco. I mean, he's got $100 million worth of tobacco there, so it's access to some of his best tobaccos because he's actually rolling the cigars for us. So
Yeah.
and I smoke, so I get to smoke that stuff all the time. You know.
So I mean, and it's interesting because I had kind of touched on this at the beginning of saying that a lot of the Maduros you see out there are kind of broadleaf or San Andreas. I mean, you see some Pennsylvania broadleaf,
Mm-hmm.
but Matafina is one of those really unique Maduros out there. And what would you say is like some of the characteristics of Matafina tobacco?
So I mean, it goes through phases. Brazil was very, very popular. Like when I first started in 04, 05, you had the CAO Brasilia. Tarano made a cigar called their Signature. That also had a Brazilian. It's actually had an Arapiaca wrapper. Usually the Brazil Maduros come one or two. It's either Arapiaca or Matafina. And the way that I do it, that I tell people is basically most companies have three Maduros, right? You're going to have your broadleaf, you're going to have your San Andre, Mexico, and you're going to have your Brazil. So traditional broadleaf is your coffee, your cocoa, very dark, but it's also very kind of spice forward, and there's not quite as much sweetness in the broadleaf as in the other two. The Matafinas, the Brazils are in the middle. It has the sweetness that the San Andre has, but it also has a floral characteristic that the other two do not have. So it's kind of a little sweet, a little aromatic, kind of citrusy is the wrong word, but it has that kind of that floral botanical nature to it. San Andre is like Mexican chocolate; it's spicy sweet. So that's what your choices are. And that's why we use those three particular wrappers the most because it gives you really three classes of Maduro to smoke from.
Yeah. And have you personally with your brand and with Pier
Yeah,
28 said?
I prefer the San Andre. It's one of the worst kept secrets in the marketplace, but that's what Padrones used for their Maduros for many, many years.
Yeah.
You know, and it has the sweetness is off the charts, which I love. My Maduro for Pier 28 is San Andre. So that's the one that would be my first choice, and you can see why. I mean, the adoption in the industry, because that's such a, it pairs so well with Nicaragua. You know, so I think that's why everybody has one. I think it's the best Maduro for when you do Nicaraguas. You know, so because it just pairs, it just adds the sweetness and it tempers the spice levels that are sometimes in the Nicaraguan tobaccos. So, you know, that's my first choice. It would be, I mean, if I had, you know, grabbed a Maduro, you gave me an option, I would reach for the San Andre first.
Okay. And also, I mean, on a manufacturer side, it's somewhat more readily available than something like broadleaf.
Correct.
So you have less supply
of Mexican tend to be a little bit stronger, so we can, you know, now that doesn't mean all San Andres are created equal. Right. That shade from very light to very dark, you know, but you know, it is very versatile and it's widely available, which is why it gets used a lot too. That is one of our. I'll give you guys one of our manufacturing secrets. Whatever the hot wrapper is, it's probably the one that's the cheapest and most available at the moment.
There you go. Well, I mean,
that's your inside secret for today. So,
well, when you kind of say they're not all equal, I mean, one of the most complex San Andreas wrappers or cigars that I've smoked is Dapper's San Andreas Borracho. Like, you smoke that, and you smoke it to some of the other San Andreas on the market, two different flavor profiles completely.
Sure, but that I would attribute to Ian. Ian has one of the most unique palates that I've ever seen in this business. His concept of a Nicaraguan cigar is completely different than everybody else's, and you can see it blending because most of his Nicaraguan stuff is very non-traditional. You know, because again, you know, AJ, I would say, was almost a typical Nicaragua. You know what to expect. It's going to have that spice forward kind of hit. It's going to build. You know, it's going to calm down a little bit and then build again. But you're going to get that spice throughout. You get a little sweetness. That is AJ's kind of trademark. Ian's Nicaraguas, they're different from cigar to cigar to cigar. His care and his blending is, you know, because again, he's you know, a little more of a small batch. He has the time and the desire to create things that are different, you know, and in a good way, you know. So that's why I mean I really love his blending style. I really love his cigars. You know, he's just a good person in general. So, you know, I wish him nothing but success. You know, I love whenever I go to Fresno, that's where he lives. I mean, when I show up there, first guy calls, not my retail, I just see him. Hey, you want to smoke later? You know, because it's fun smoking. You know, we talk business. You know, and you know, we hang out. You know, I love that guy.
Nice, awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to probably close it down here, but okay. I want to thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking tobacco.
Sure. I saw that pack you're offering. Let me just say, there's not one dud in there. It may not be to your palate, but you know, that's an offering of some of our best cigars, from our most popular to you know, our newest hits. So I think that you're going to get a really good idea of where AJ Fernandez is as a company if you pick up those samplers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll have you out to the shop soon.
Yeah,
one of the tastings.
Yep. Maybe the next time Black Label releases something, or we can do AJ Night again. We've done both, so I'd love to do it again. So
great. All right, well, you take it easy and have a great night.
All right, you guys, smoke well and take care of yourselves, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
And if